Hi, I'm Tina Wiles, and welcome to the next episode of the Assessment Alchemist Podcast. Today, we are going to talk about a six-part framework to make sure that you are walking into the test that you're taking with confidence. Okay, so ready, steady, go. Because the six-part framework is called STEADY, STEADY. All right, so I have been working in the test prep industry for over 20 years now. And one thing that I see over and over again, whether it is finals in school, a standardized test for college entrance like ACT or SAT, or professionals walking into like their professional engineering exam or other certifications or licensing exams, the same thing is true for everybody. And that is that tests don't always test what you know, they test how well you take a test. So, what I mean by that is that there are certain parts, and we're going to go through, STEADY covers all of it, but we're going to go through like there are like content is important, right? But what is missing sometimes is the strategies or the mindset needed. Okay. And I am certified mental performance coach. And I found that there's a lot of similarity between how athletes approach being able to perform under pressure and how students should also approach being able to perform under pressure. So, what you're getting on practice exams or homework, or like as you're preparing for the test, we want that to actually be demonstrated when you take the actual exam. All right. So, um, I do talk about this on the blog. So there's a blog that goes along with this. I'm going to dive into a little bit more detail, but you can check that out if you want to. All right. So let's start with the first letter of STEADY, which is S. So S stands for study anchors. Okay. So what study anchors are is exactly like it sounds. So the study anchors are using sensory cues while you're preparing for a test or a big standardized exam or whatever it is, as you're preparing, um, involving your senses when you're studying so that when you're sitting taking the test, you can replicate some of the things to bring you back to the moments when you were studying. Okay, so before I go through and give examples about actually taking an exam, let me see if I could relate this to some things that you might know. So, for Mother's Day, one of my sons gave me, I'm a Disney person, and he gave me essential oil that's called Park Sense, and it's Main Street. So it's supposed to smell like Main Street in Disney World. Okay, so why do they even have this product? Is because the being able to smell something that you have smelled at another time can bring you back to that moment. So, so Main Street is amazing. It does it for me. It is a very strong smelling essential oil. So even it's going to last me a long time because even one drop is enough for the whole room to smell like it. Um, but say, have you ever like walked like into a restaurant or something and you smell and you're like smell something and you're like, this smells exactly like the cookies that my grandmother used to make? Or if you like, when I smell Jacquard, the cologne, this is for those older people. It brings me back to high school because all the kids were wearing it in high school. So their sense can actually trigger things in your memory. Okay. The same is true for all of our sense. Okay. So the study anchor concept is that by maybe like chewing gum, peppermint, oh, this is spearmint, but peppermint gum, is actually supposed to help with memory recall. So chewing the gum while you're studying and then chewing when you take the exam. Or I love like Mio drops for water. So a certain flavor that you use when you're studying, and then you can have that same flavor when you are sitting there taking the exam. But it's involving any of your senses. So those are some examples of taste and scent. You can also do touch. So that might be wearing a comfy sweatshirt that is like it feels good to you when you're wearing it and comforting. It could be like like fidgets for touch. Um, let's see, sight. So sight would be maybe you have write out a word, calm or focused, right? Or maybe it's I do things called a sigil, which sounds kind of crazy, but a sigil is like a form of meditation, but coming up with like a symbol or um, like drawing something that when you see it, you're like, this makes me feel confident or this makes me feel focused, right? So you could draw something out that you could see, and then sound. So, this could be obviously you can't play sounds a lot of times when you're taking these exams. But you could do like a routine when you're studying where maybe it's you put on like your favorite pump up song. One of my go-tos is Can't Stop Me Now by Queen. So if I put that on before I study and dance or move or whatever, and then I could listen to that same song before I walk into an exam. So anything that you can do to integrate those senses is going to help with recall, right? Basically, your senses bridge your study state to your test state, right? It helps you put you back in that same frame of reference. That is S of study. All right, so now let's talk about T. Okay. T stands for test content. Okay. This one's pretty obvious, right? You're being tested on information. And so you need to actually be able to recall that information when you're sitting there taking the test. Okay. And honestly, a lot of times I find if someone's not performing well on a test, it usually isn't due to the content. Like people know the content pretty well, but it is important. Okay. So there is something that it's called the generation effect, okay? And the generation effect is that information you produce, so like that you're writing or you're speaking, is remembered better than information that you're passively consuming, like listening or highlighting. Okay. So, a couple things that can help you with making sure that you're remembering the content would be writing out what you know, like old, like pencil to paper, write out everything you know about a topic. Or if you're trying to quiz yourself on something, write out everything you can remember about it. If writing's not your thing, speaking into like a notes app on your phone, so that you're talking out what you know. And then you can listen to it. But those two things, writing or speaking, are going to help you recall the information. This would be, I don't know if you ever heard, like, if you can teach it, it means you know it. So this is the same kind of thing. Like you could pretend like you're trying to teach the content of the test to someone that doesn't know anything about it to see if you can actually explain and understand the concepts at a level that's going to help with being able to recall it when you're under pressure on a test. Okay. Um, if you don't know the material that's on the test, you're not going to do well. Okay. But the opposite is not necessarily true. You could know the material really well it doesn't guarantee that you're going to do really well on the test. Okay. So the idea of steady is that the T is just one part of what it takes to walk into the test with confidence, right? So I just wanted to be able to point it out, right? Knowing the material is not necessarily sufficient for getting what you want to on an exam. Okay, and that leads me into the next letter of steady, which is E for exam strategy. Okay, so what I mean by exam strategy is like if you're thinking about an athlete trying to get ready for a big game, um, they might prospect against other teams to see what they need to keep an eye out for. You're going to come up with a game plan of like what your maybe the batting order, right? Or who are the starting five on the basketball court. But then also it's not just who's doing that, but then what you're doing in different situations, right? Like if something happens during the game, I'm going to move these people around, or right, or on basketball, we're going to try playing this offense. And then if that's not working, you need to change strategies, right? That's what I mean by exam strategy. And a lot of times, like we just think, oh, if I know it, that means I'm going to be able to do it. Um, so basically, I want you to think about your exam strategy as your plan of how you're going to attack the test. Okay. So it's knowing what the format of the test is. Okay. Do I have 10 multiple choice questions and then a couple free response questions? Is it 4 hours of um, these topics for the beginning part, and then I take a lunch break, and then I come back and I have the rest. I have so many other questions to do, right? Like the format of the test, the time of the test, um, how the test is scored, right? All these can come into play with what your strategy is going to be for trying to approach it. So, for instance, if all of the questions are weighted equally and you can move back and forth in the test, you can skip a question once you read it a couple times and you're not sure, and then come back later, right? Like taking another approach at it. If you can't go back in the exam, what do you do so that you uh, can move on instead of getting stuck in like a spiral on a certain question? How are you going to manage your time as you go through the exam? What are you going to do if you have two answer choices that you're stuck between? And how are you going to approach that, right? So the thinking through all of these things can help during the test because you don't have decisions that you need to make. Okay. So, um, the, um, another strategy would be, let's see, look at my notes real fast. Um, if I run out of time, I'm going to make sure that I have answers for everything down. And I'm going to pick the letter B if I completely run out of time so that I have answers for everything, right? That only works if every question is like, you don't get deducted if you have wrong answers, right? So that's what I mean. Understand how the scoring is, how the test is scored, how much time, being able to work through that plan is going to help you make decisions in the moment. Time for the next letter. Um, A, okay, is for anchor breath. So the what I mean by anchor breath is it's a physiological sigh, okay? And I have in other podcasts or blogs talked about different breathing techniques, and it sounds silly if I tell you that your breath is very powerful and can help you, but it's also incredibly true. And why this makes a difference is because the when we're in stressful situations, one thing that happens without us realizing it is we start to breathe shallow. Okay. And so being able to like hijack your breath from autopilot and where you're breathing shallow and being able to take a couple intentional breaths is going to bring you into the moment that you're in. Okay. and it's going to flood your body with oxygen, and it's going to reduce the carbon dioxide that's in your body, and it's going to help you feel better immediately. Okay. So, um, the what's his name is Dr. Andrew Huberman from Stanford did a study in 2023, and I'm going to show you this breathing technique that the study was on. It's called the physiological sigh, and this is actually the most significant reduction in stress and anxiety breathing technique, according to Dr. Huberman. So, what it looks like, I'm going to walk you through. I'm going to talk you through, and then we'll do it together. So, you're going to start off by blowing all the air out. Then you're going to inhale through your nose deep enough to almost completely fill your lungs. Okay. Then before you exhale, you're going to do a second short inhale, also through your nose, to kind of top off the air in our lungs. And then we're going to do a slow, complete exhale through your mouth, like you're blowing through a straw. And so let me show you, and then I'll talk about a little bit more about why this actually works. Okay, so we're going to inhale through our first exhale. Now inhale through your nose, deep enough to fill your lungs. A little bit more. And then exhale. Okay, I'm going to talk you through it again. So you're going to inhale deeply through your nose. Now inhale a little bit more. And then exhale slowly through your mouth. Okay, so if you do 3 of these, it's going to make a big difference. What it is actually doing with your body is the double inhale actually helps to inflate tiny air sacs in your lung that can collapse during stressful situations. So I don't know if you ever, like, if you get really upset or you're crying hard, or if you've ever seen like a baby where they're like, when you're like doing those, that's what that's doing. Okay. And that's why this can help calm you down. It's because you're feeling those, right? And then the long exhale slowly releases built up carbon dioxide that is in your system due to the shallow and maybe fast breathing that takes place when you're stressed. Okay. The last thing that actually happens, so all this is, like I said, it's crazy how powerful your breath is the long exhale also stimulates the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is the longest nerve in our body, and it is responsible for helping regulate fight or flight mode. So when we can stimulate that body, it helps signal to your body that you're safe and can come down out of fight or flight. All right, so that one little second little little sigh can make a big difference. All right, we have 2 more left. So now we're on D of steady, and that is your day of routine. Okay, so um, if you are the kind of person that is like, I have the test in a day, and I'm gonna like cram tonight, or I have this big exam that people were preparing months for, and I'm just gonna lock in, and I'm gonna study like 3, 4 hours a day, 8 hours on the weekends, and I'm preparing to get to this huge certification exam, right? Like all that cramming actually adds additional stress before you go into an exam. Okay. So it's the energy that you're bringing to that, right? And one way to help like calm that down and like kind of bring the energy in is to actually think through and then work through a day of routine. Okay. And the day of routine actually starts probably the day or two before in making sure that you're actually getting enough sleep. And getting 8 hours of sleep the night before your exam is important. And if you actually sleep 8 hours a night, at least a couple nights leading up to the exam, it's going to help even more, right? It's not just necessarily the sleep from the night before you take the exam. Okay, but think through what your perfect day would look like. Like I wake up, I feel rested. I had the 8 hours of sleep. I put all the stuff I needed to walk into the exam together the night before. So get all that stuff together the night before, right? Like you're starting your morning peacefully. Think about what you might have for breakfast. Okay, so like uh egg muffin from McDonald's. Not saying that McDonald's is what you should go to, but like that kind, like an egg muffin is a good example of you want some protein, you want carbs, you want some healthy fats. Not necessarily that McDonald's is healthy fat, but I think you get what I'm saying, right? But you want high protein and some carb in order to fuel your brain and your body for the mental workout that you're going to go through during an exam. Um, so while you're eating breakfast or lunch, if your test is later in the day, go ahead and read something or do some kind of puzzle. I'm a Sudoku girl, so like maybe do that, some kind or Wordle, right? Like do something to get your brain going, um, but in a peaceful state. Reading a novel, right? So you're like warming up your brain, getting ready for the test, but not in a stressful manner. Um, and then what is it going to be like when you're driving to the test? Think through what the route is that you're going to get there, where you're going to park. Like thinking through all these things before the day of the test is going to help making walking into the test a lot more peaceful and calm. It's going to help you feel steady. See what I did there? All right. And doing some movement can also help that morning. So yes, the day of routine, thinking through, it's going to help you a lot. And then the last letter is why. So performing under pressure, um, can be a challenge, right? That's the whole reason why I have the study concept. And when you're preparing, when you're getting frustrated, if you're getting some questions wrong, maybe it's similar types of questions or silly errors when you go back and look at it. Um, when you're just getting frustrated with studying, going back to your why of the exam is going to help motivate you when you don't want to be doing it. Okay. So, some things that you could do would actually be keep these visual. So say it's you're looking for you're trying to get a certification because your job title is going to change. Write your new job title up and put it like up on your computer or up on the wall so that you see that when you're studying. Maybe it's I really want this SAT score so I could try to get a scholarship to go to this certain school. Or maybe it's just I want to increase my chances of getting into different schools. Um, Maybe it's you've always dreamt about being a nurse and you need to pass the TEAS exam in order to get into nursing school, right? Like there are what going back to your why when you're getting frustrated is going to help keep you centered and it's going to motivate you on those days, like I said, when you don't want to. So, you could record it to a voice memo, like telling yourself. And if you don't like how your voice sounds, you could even use um, like I think if you record it on TikTok, there's different things that you could do to like actually like put a like a I want to say voice distorter, but like so that it doesn't sound like it's coming for you, or type it into AI and have AI read it back, right? Like if there's a lot of things that you could do, but if you record it so that you could listen to it every day while you're brushing your teeth, right? Like those kinds of things are what's going to help you when you're getting frustrated. Um, okay. So, the way you apply study okay, is going to look different depending on what you struggle with, how test pressure shows up for you. Okay, so I have a 2-minute quiz that you could take on the website. We'll also make sure that the link is in the show notes. My tutor, my the number 2tor.com, has a mindset quiz. And what it's going to do is going to tell you what type of test taker you are. Okay. So, how this shows up is like the overthinker being able to rely on that anchor breath is going to help a lot when you're stuck between problems. A wall hitter, like if you're really like kind of feel like you're giving up, like you're just not getting anywhere, going back to your why is going to help, right? So steady works for everybody, but there are certain parts of steady that might help you more than others, is what I'm getting at. So everyone gets steady, but everyone uses it differently. All right. So quick recap, the steady. So study anchors, test content, exam strategy, anchor breath, day of routine, and your why. STEADY. Go check out the quiz on mytutor.com to see what type of test taker you are. And you can also check out the blog if a written version of this, or you'd like to have something that can keep this grounded for you. There's a graphic in the blog as well. All right, you've got this. Ready, steady, go. Thanks for joining me.